Welcome back, YouTube, to another episode of 10 with Travis, where we take just 10 minutes a day to dive deep into the Word so you can be more equipped today than you were yesterday. Today's episode is going to be our first episode as we go through the entire Bible in chronological order. And again, the theme or the title of these messages is going to be Did You Know? So we're going to talk about things that I learned. I'm also going to just maybe put out some questions that went through my head that I haven't maybe gone back to answer yet. And that can maybe create some discussion or dialogue between all of us, that if you want to comment, send emails if you think you have a good answer to my question or you have some good commentary for me, you can go ahead and do so. So this first section of the Did You Know is going to be through Genesis 1 through 11. So Genesis 1 through 11 is going to be the start of when you read it in chronological order. And then after chapter 11, you actually jump into the book of Job and you do the entire book of Job. So we're going to today just talk about those first 11 chapters of the Bible. So we're going to go through a couple Did You Knows and then kind of wrap it up with the biggest Did You Know that I'll talk about and maybe go in a little bit more detail on. So one of the Did You Knows came in chapter 2, which that comes after the entire chapter 1 where, it kind of sets the stage for creation. And then as we go through Genesis, God creates everything and then creates man. And then they start talking about, some of the people in the Bible. But chapter 2 talked about a river that was created to water the Garden of Eden. So it had one river that then went into 4 rivers. And the Did You Know that I had as I read that was it wasn't actually rain from the sky that was doing it, but it says that the river watered it. So Genesis 2:10 said, "A river flowed out of Eden to water the garden, and there it divided and became 4 rivers." So that was just a cool Did You Know for myself. So as I continued to read, we then read about how Adam, the first man, was told to name everything. And one of the things that I just thought of is when I was reading it is, who taught Adam how to speak? Did he just inherently, once he was created, be able to speak and have communication with God? As you read through other parts of the Bible, we talk about our spirit language and our heavenly language. Was it that he had that spiritual heavenly language that he was able to communicate with God, and that's how he used to name everything out there? So that was something that I really kind of just thought about as I was reading that is, some of these things from the beginning, was it things they had to develop and learn, or did they have some of these skills and some of these traits right off the bat? So staying in chapter 2, I wanted to talk about Eve and how she was deceived. So when you look at Eve, her desire was actually to have wisdom. So she wanted to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that essentially is just to have wisdom. And the thing with that is that's the same exact thing as we continue to go through the Bible that Solomon wanted, right? God asked Solomon, ask for anything, and Solomon asked for wisdom. So the issue isn't necessarily always the thing that we want or the thing that we ask for, but it could be the way we obtain it. So when we obtain something incorrectly or prematurely or, in a different variation of what we should actually know, because again, God wanted them to know stuff. He just didn't want them to be able to see the bad as well. So he just wanted them to see the good and not the bad. So it wasn't inherently wrong for her to want to, like I said, be like God, because we're made in his image, as it said in Genesis 1. So a lot of times we need to be careful with how we obtain stuff. We need to take God's promises that we think he's going to give us, and we need to follow the correct steps and the correct measures to go ahead and obtain that. So another Did You Know that came through that chapter to me was, again, it's something that I kind of already knew, but it just jumped out to the page on me. And that was that when God set this all up, he knew that Eve was going to take of the fruit and that it was going to have the fall of man. Now, again, I think we all kind of know that, but there was verses that jumped out to the page to kind of solidify that. for me on my Did You Know. So Genesis 2:17 says, "But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in that day that you eat of it, you shall surely die." So he didn't say, if you actually go and eat of it, you will die. He said, for in that day that you eat of it, you will surely die. So he basically told her what was going to happen, or told them, hey, I know you're going to eat of it, and this is going to be the consequence. But again, God is so merciful that even through that, he was able to redeem the world. So as we go into the next kind of parts of Genesis, we start talking, like, so we had Adam and Eve, and then we kind of go through different stages of characters and people. And the next one for my Did You Know was Noah and his father, Lamech, and that's spelled Lamech. And I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So my big Did You Know that I want to talk about today is that, did you know the entire Bible is just full of imperfection? Now let me explain. The story of Jesus, God's plan, all that stuff has perfection in itself, but all of the characters and the people and things like that in it are unperfect, right? We are all unperfect people, which is why we need a Savior. And there's no better example of that than Noah's father, Lamech. So first off, he had 2 wives. So he's the first instance, I believe, in the Bible that we see the polygamy. He said in Genesis 4:23-24, he said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, you wives of Lamech. Listen to what I say. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. If Cain's revenge is 7-fold, then Lamech is 77-fold. So he was bragging about killing someone and saying, I did it so bad that the judgment on me should be even worse than it was on Cain. So I bring that up as a did you know is, did you know that the entire lineage of the Bible, as we get into, going through these people until we get to Jesus, is just imperfection. So these imperfect people is where Jesus is going to stem through. And that's just such a beautiful picture of God and how merciful he is, that he is able to take all of these people and still create a beautiful story out of that. So for us in our lives, we need to know that, as Noah is right here, again, when Noah and the flood came and he was the only people on earth. So everything does stem through Noah, which means everything stems through Lamech, right? Because that was Noah's father. So whether you don't have, you see your family lineage and you're like, hey, I can't do this or that because my parents never amount to nothing, or, no one in my family has ever done that. Just know that God can take you individually and start something great. Right here, he had Noah, who had a very unrighteous and imperfect father, and he was able to use Noah. And it says that Noah was found to have favor in God's eyes. So it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter who you come from or what is around you. All that matters is that God's love and his grace can cover all of that you can amount to as much as you want, which is more than what we normally think, but is exactly what God created us to be. So that does it today on today's episode. What I want you to leave with is thinking about the did you know of Noah and his father, how his father had 2 wives, was a murderer. So no matter what situation or circumstance you come from, you can have a victorious life through Christ. So as we go through this chronological order, we're going to jump into the book of Job next. So I encourage you to continue, if you're in that, to read about that. If you aren't reading about the Bible, reading about the chronological Bible, and you're not staying with us on this, I still recommend and hope that you join us on these videos, because there's going to be things that you find out as well. If you'd like to give, or you have questions or comments, please see the ways in the description below on how to do that. I hope you have a blessed 2025, as this is the first video that we posted in the new year. May God bless you, keep you safe, and prosper you, and give you a deeper revelation of himself. So we will see you next time on 10 with Travis.